Hey folks, welcome back. Today, let's talk about chainsaws. What? More importantly, that one and that one. Holzfforma. Holzfforma. If y'all don't know much about that brand or anything, that's a very common Chinese knockoff. I guess you can say knockoff, clone. Probably clone's the better term because they're a clone. They're not a knockoff. They are a clone. That one right there, clone of a Steel MS660. That one right there, clone of a Steel MS201. There's a lot of talk about these, the 660s in particular. People get them because it's a big 92cc saw. It's very common for folks who get into Alaskan chainsaw milling. And that's actually the reason why I got mine. That's why I have it sitting on this hickory that I was milling up. That's why in the background is some of the cuttings from a spruce that I was milling up. With it being a clone of a Steel MS660, does it hold up to a 660? No. That's okay. The Holzfforma, in my experience, make decent saws. Now, the quality control isn't necessarily there. So, you might have some premature part failures, yada, yada, yada. But the important part is, that saw cost me, I think, $400. I don't even think it was $400 when I bought it. Like $370 or whatnot. That saw cost me $250-ish, something like that. $2,000 brand new when they stopped making the Steel 660. Today, the 662, I think, is the modern iteration of it. And they're like $2,300 maybe. I don't even know. I wouldn't even know where to start how much one of them would cost. Those, again, I don't even know where they would start. I think they're like $800, something like that, brand new, for the modern 201T or whatever. So this is a quarter of the cost, maybe half the cost, a third. Are they worth getting for the quarter of the cost or a third? I ain't really worried about them two saws. I just wanted to stick them up there. Let's bring these two up here. Look at that. I can get them both in one camera shot. These are good saws. They work, but they will require some tinkering. And if you don't like to tinker, then they're not the saws for you. I'm going to start by saying my complaints about the saws first. And I'm going to specifically focus more on the 660 because that's the more popular model. And that's the one I've had for about 6-7 months now. I've mostly milled with it because that was the point of getting that saw. And that's probably what most of the people are looking to get these saws for. So I just put these saw dogs back on it. I will say, if you mill with it, take these off. I replaced the hardware for these because they kept back and loose, so I put lock nuts on them. But any saw should have lock nuts on those anyways. They do not come without or they come without lock nuts, so that's something to upgrade to. Another minor complaint, which you can see right here. There's a bar nut there. Grab the little scrunch. It's like impossible to get to it with a scrunch, which that's of course what you're going to be carrying if you run a saw. No big deal. Grab a 19 or a 3/4. You can slip right in there, unloosen it. It's good to go. Now, one of the big complaints I've seen when I did research about these was the full wrap handle on these. Not so much because of that. I think that's actually a detail that most places I don't think was even mentioned. How it blocks your bar nut, but that's nothing. Supposedly, from what I've heard from other people, they're fragile. They like to break right here. Which you can see, mine is chipping paint off right there. So maybe in the future I'll have an issue with that, but it's lasted so far. And even with cutting trees, doing firewood and all that kind of stuff, I really like having the full wrap handle. I've been converted. I like the full wrap handle. Even though it gets in the way. Another issue, pull cord. This is a homemade one that I got from Tractor Supply Rope. And it has held up better than the Holzfforma pull rope. Again, that's a $2 part, whatever. Or maybe not $2. If you go my route, it'll be like $2. If you go and buy an OEM steel pull rope, I don't even know what they cost. They're probably like $30 or something. I have heard about the decompression going out of them. I think that issue's been fixed. That was more or less an issue with some of the earlier Holzfforma 660s. So, I'm going to turn her around. For those who work on saws, you know what happens when you pull this cover off. You got the chain going around the sprocket. That sprocket is connected to the clutch drum. Pull that off, there's your clutch. Inside there is where I've had the most major issues. Clutch spring. I've had them break on me, I don't know how many times now. And it's kind of annoying. But I've gotten so used to fixing it that it's not really even no longer a big deal. And I think I have one broken now. The big telltale sign of this is when you go to fire it up and at an idle, this chain is going like it's not supposed to. Partly that might be because of my fault. I did buy steel OEM springs that I was going to put on it, but I also bought aftermarket ones. So I said, let me go through my aftermarket ones first. And then I just replaced the one that broke, of course. I didn't replace all three like I probably should have. Placed the one that broke. A little while later, another one broke. Guess what? I couldn't find my steel OEM to replace all three. So I replaced that one with the aftermarket one again. And guess what? It's broken now. So back to the same issue. I think even for steel OEM, they're $5 a set. If that, you can probably get a better deal on that than that. But again, I think that mainly comes down to user operator error and milling with it. Of course, I have showed off before. I blew this all up. Okay, maybe blew up is overstatement. Cylinder head. I burnt the rings in the piston. It was actually on this piece here. I got to this far and all of a sudden it didn't want to go no farther and then it did not want to start. So I tore the cylinder off of it and there we are. There is the original head and piston in it. Of course, I'm showing the side that went completely bad. This was the piston on the exhaust side. It got hot. There's not really even any deep grooves in it. It just melted the ring and the piston shut, so it no longer had compression. Intake side's fine. There's barely even like regular loose. Hi, chicken. There's barely even any scoring from how do I want to put it? Misforgings or whatnot. That definitely came from heat. Because one of the things I've seen during the research of these is you got to look at the head quality, because a lot of them get like gauges, especially right there at the ports. I don't think that looks too bad. Let me set it down here. You can see maybe a touch. You can see maybe a touch of rough marks, but I put my finger in there, but it's not rough at all. So I think even though that was a common issue on some of the Holzfforma 660s, either I got a good one, but I think they've kind of fixed that issue as well with their quality control. Ignore those marks on that. That's from me tossing it in the shop because I'm mad about something. I don't even remember what I was mad about. I replaced the head and piston. She's got a big bore kit on her now. So before it was 92cc. She is 99cc now. But I also put a thicker head gasket underneath it to lower the compression. Why did I lower the compression? Because milling with it, this thing will get hot. Lower your compression a little bit, it won't get so hot. If any of you guys are looking to run one of these milling, that may be something to think about. But I also want to point out what I was milling too. And let's back up a little bit. If you want one of these saws, especially for milling, you better really consider what you're milling. Back there, doing the soft spruce, this thing chooched along all day long, never had an issue. But it seems like as soon as I would get into this hickory, I was having issues. Or oak as well. Anymore, this is about the biggest of a log that I will really mill with it. Of course, it probably doesn't help that this hickory was dead and already seasoned, so it's even a little bit harder yet. Hickory is not known for being a soft wood. Now let's harden her up a little bit more. That's, I don't know. Let's get the 16-inch bar up there. No, 14. So that's about 18 inches in diameter. From my experience, that's, at least when it comes to hardwood, that's all I'm willing to mill with this thing. Because anything bigger is just too hard on it. It's not that it can't do it. It does it. I've had this saw with a 36-inch bar. Right now, I got 28 on. 36-inch bar buried into oak. That thing was just chugging along just fine. Now, not milling. It was just actual cutting. Chicken! I hear ya. If you're on the East Coast like me, mainly doing hardwoods, this saw 28-inch max. You can do a 36, but it does not like it. Not so much that I don't have the power, everything gets hot. And then you'll blow it up, like I did. Maybe not necessarily blow it up. You'll burn up bars. Here's the other thing. I actually have my Neotech bar on it right now instead of my Oregon. Neotech makes fine bars, but they're a little soft. I like their chains. Their chains seem to hold up better than expected. Now, again, I would rather run an Oregon bar and chain on it. If you're on a budget, need a bigger saw, bigger bar, Neotech bars, they're fine. Holzfforma saws, they're fine. You got to tinker with it. That's what you will find with these saws. You will have to tinker with them. They are not OEM quality, but for the price of them, they do great. In fact, if I had to kind of summarize it into Steel and Husqvarna make their Harry homeowner lines. That's the farm boss for Steel and the rancher for Husqvarna. They are very reliable saws, but their performance is very lacking for the size of those saws, at least in my experience. I'm not saying they're bad saws. If you need a saw that is reliable, you don't have to tinker with, go with one of those. Now, of course, they don't make an 892cc Farm Boss or Rancher. That's where the Holzfforma or Neotech shines. You can get the bigger saw for the same kind of price. If you only use it every now and again, it'll work fine. They are well worth their money for that use. If you're milling with it, it's probably better to start with the Holzfforma, because milling with a saw is a learning process, and it is hard on a saw. Would you rather go spend $2,000 on a saw and blow it up because you didn't know how to mill with it, or go buy a $400 saw that can mill and it does fine? If I had to go back again, instead of getting the 660, I would have probably got the reproduction of the 070. Holzfforma and Neotech both make them. 070 that was from the 60s to the 80s. At least in my situation, running hardwood, I kind of need more torque and lower chain speed, and that's what the 070 has over the 660. You get the higher torque and slower chain speed than what you got on the 660, but in the long run, that makes it easier to mill. Yes, you won't mill quite so quick, but yeah, if I had to do things over again, milling wise, I'd get the 070 over this one. And if it was just for cutting bigger trees and bigger logs up into firewood, I would probably not go with the 660 here. They have a 70cc, well, they have two 70cc saws. One's a clone of the Husqvarna 372. No, I know the Holzfforma model is 372, I think. Or maybe it is a clone of the 372 XP or something like that. For the steel size, they have the G444, which I think is the 460, but I'm not the best with models. It's a 70cc saw. It can handle up to a 36-inch bar just as fine as this thing can. It definitely would not hold up milling like this thing would, at least especially in hardwoods. It'd probably even mill up some bigger softwoods just fine. I have full faith that it would. To me, the 660 is more of a niche size when it comes to milling, for me at least. I know some other places, different kinds of trees, different sizes. This may make sense. To me, probably was not the best of choices. That's fine. I'm not complaining on the saw on that, because that's my own research. I should have took that into consideration. But the thing is, too, these saws are very, very common on the Alaska milling side of things. Yeah, they work. They work just fine. But really consider what you are milling and get the saw better suited for that, and you will be more satisfied. It's not that I'm dissatisfied with this. I just didn't really understand what I'd be using it for, even though I knew I was using it for milling. So, overall, 660, good saw. You'll have to tinker with it. It'll mill hardwoods, take it slow, give it a break every now and again, because that's the other thing. I never really gave it a break. I also never really gave it a break-in period, so that again contributes to the premature ring burning. Will I recommend this saw? Yes, if it fills all those criteria. You need a saw that you can learn off of, mill with it, you're not scared of breaking it, or having to tinker with it. You want a cheaper saw to do a little bit of bigger cutting here and there, this is where it's at. If you want a reliable saw that can handle some bigger trees without tinkering with it, like straight out of the box, you just want to fuel it up, run it, not have an issue, this is not going to work for you. You will not be satisfied. You would have to go and spend the money on a steel 662 or 500i if you really want to get pricey, or Husqvarna. And that's another thing I should have pointed out. I really am not a big person on the Husqvarna versus steel. They both make fantastic saws. I'm just going to go with all steel because the dealer support around me for parts for steels is a little bit better. The 3 places I would go to, I like the customer service. There's one major Husqvarna dealer around, except for Tractor Supply where I work. But of course, Tractor Supply only carries the Rancher series, and they don't really deal with parts, so it wouldn't make sense for me to go get one of them. Now this little guy, since I am talking Holzfforma, I might as well talk about this. Since I am getting into climbing, and I've been satisfied with this saw, I decided I will try this one. I have ran enough gas into it to break it in. I have 14-inch Oregon on it, because, again, I'm a big fan of Oregon. This thing's a cool little saw. Man, she needs a bath. Whew. I got her dirty. This thing's a good running little saw. For 35cc, this thing has some power. Now, of course, it helps having a shorter bar on it. Of course, less power you got in the saw, you better just be safer running the shorter bar. But I've had no issues with this saw whatsoever. I haven't had it the full 6 months, and I haven't abused it like I have that one. But this thing just rips. It does fine. I love it. My only complaint is I hate the new style caps, but I am figuring them out, so it ain't so much a big issue. I do not foresee the pull rope being an issue on this saw like that one, or at least the breakage of it, because you figure this saw right here, that's a big motor. It's high compression. It takes some force. Now, granted, yeah, you have the decompression, but that's still a lot of force it takes to pull over. This thing's a little guy. I mean, she's got compression, don't get me wrong, but it does not take so much force to pull her. They have the same size pull rope in this one as they do in that one, so I don't foresee this being an issue. Same thing with the clutch springs. Little saw, I'm not milling with it. Clutch springs should not be an issue. I would be kind of concerned if it was. Now again, I still have not ran this saw like I have that one, so we'll see how time comes with this. It's nice and lightweight. Of course, I got it for climbing, but I have no complaints. There's like no complaints with this saw whatsoever yet. She did need a good carburetor tune-up out of the box. So did that one. If you buy a Holzfforma, you're going to have to tune the carburetor out of the box. That's just how they are. I think I got that one chooching along pretty good, and I got this one chooching along pretty good. So, how about we fire these things up? But yeah, I'm not even going to try milling that. Chicken, you're going to have to get out of here in a second, because I'm going to be running some chainsaws. Yes. Run that way. Run. She's got a puffed up butt. She's about ready to lay an egg. Speaking of eggs, I got my first goose eggs. That's awesome, but that's not the point of this video. Maybe I'll share that off another time, but let's get to cutting. Now, I haven't started this thing up in about 4 days now. So, I mean, this is as cold can get. She's got gas, she's got oil. The chain, that's a little sharper than what I thought it'd be. I have not sharpened the chain up in a little while, so it still ought to cut just fine. But we're not here for a speed test, as most people aren't going out and cutting with ideal chains. We're just going and cutting. Of course, decompression. Better kick that on, or you will regret life. Switch all the way down for full choke. I always give it a couple pulls, since it don't have a fuel primer that kind of does its priming. And then give her a yank. Especially on a warm day like this, you will not fire on full choke. Give it a half choke. And she might still take a couple pulls, depending on how long it's been. Well, my camera cut off like literally as I made my cut. Let's do this again. She's warmed up now. We'll give her another go. Warm start up. Switch down, decompression. Of course, I didn't want to go all the way through. And I also took notice now that the saw's warmed up. Chain's got a little loose. So, yeah, straightness was not an option. I should have checked that before I started up again. That's mainly the reason why I stopped. Because I don't like cutting with a loose chain. I think cut's good. This is hard hickory. And I can't even guarantee that's a very sharp chain on it. It just cut. The other reason why I don't go all the way through is I always go down until I know that I am getting close to the ground. Then I roll the log over and finish the cut from the other side. I just want to point out, tight chain. Look how straight it is. Loose chain. Especially with these longer bars, it seems like once they warm up, they will stretch, or at least the chains, they'll stretch a little bit, and then you got to retighten it. But that's not a saw issue. That might even be the cheap Neotech chains. And I might not even have it tightened properly because I just put this bar on it this morning. Shall we do the little guy? Maybe I'll finish that cut, zip some off of that one. Feel bad messing up that cut. I wanted a nice disc, but oh well, it's good. This was gonna be a little too long for firewood anyway, so. Let's get that little girl fired up. See how she does. Relatively sharp chain, not necessarily fresh off the sharpener. See, I'll just take that, full bar in, 14 inches, and see how she cuts. Same thing. We have not been started for a few days now. So let's do a cold start. Give her a couple pulls to prime it. Whoops. You hear that? It tried to pop off. So I might as well just give her a full choke. Probably not necessary on a warm day like this. Definitely ain't a bad little ripping saw. I mean, of course, going through the grains, specific ways you cut is easier than other ones, and cutting this way and that way is a little bit easier. Actually, no, this way should be harder. I can't remember. There's the chips from it. Got some pretty good sizable, but I think the chip size is mainly from, you know, how you tune your chain. And same thing from the 660. There's just some good chips. It's like perfect. Yeah, that's a good little running saw. That's a good running big saw. If you guys are curious about the Holzfforma saws, those are my thoughts on them. Now, of course, the other big clone brand would be Neotech. I can feel the dust on my face and it's annoying. Typically, I know I should have had my hard hat, my chaps, yada, yada, yada. And my earplugs. Actually, probably the earplug is more important, but that's just some quick cutting. I can't say much for Neotech, but from what I understand, it's about the same as Holzfforma. Yeah, you may not be getting OEM quality, but you'd be impressed at what these clones can do and how good they are. Don't complain that you got a tinker on them, because that's what you're going to have to do. And I imagine you tinker with it enough, especially like my 660 now. Now that I put some work into it, I don't have to touch the saw a whole lot. Even the G111 there, I haven't had to do much other than carburetor adjustments. Now, granted, I haven't put the usage in like I have that one, so it'd be a little unfair to say, yeah, I haven't had to work on it at all. They'll do you just fine. For the price, these things are awesome. That's the key word. For the price, they are awesome. And I also want to just point out, I think it's cool having blue saws. I will probably never buy any of their saws that have the orange covers on them. I like the blue. It just sets it apart from everything else. like this, right? Like, I mean, they got the eagle. It's just, I don't know. Style-wise, I think they did a good job. They probably should have done the cover on this white, but let's not complain about cosmetics. The blue is awesome, and I love the eagle. Here you can see it a little bit better. I hope you found my information a little useful. I'm no professional when it comes to saw or saw cutting, anything like that. And most people that would be buying these are not professionals regardless. So it's probably better for a non-professional to give non-professional the advice. Because if I went in with a professional mindset, I'd probably say these things are junk. When realistically, they're not. They're not perfect, but they work. They work great. And for somebody who's getting into Alaskan chainsaw milling or even just starting a tree business, you know, for the price, they're awesome. They work. You just got to tinker with them. That is what it comes down to. They're good, but you have to tinker with them. Hope you all have a good day and find that information something you'd be thinking about on your soul journey. I guess I'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks for watching. Give a like and subscribe, and help me out a little bit. I'm not a beggar, but I get the comments. That's my favorite part. I love when people comment on the videos. Then it kind of proves they're actually watching, and it ain't just a number. That's a human being on the other side. So I ain't the best on answering comments, but if you leave a comment, you'll probably get me to reply to you. So see you all in the next one. Geese! I have a question for you. Who laid this egg? That is a big egg. This just feels huge in the hand. That is massive. Who laid this egg? Which one of you was it? I think they're just mad that I'm around. I love my geese.